Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep on something I think a lot of people struggle with, and that's mindful listening.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We're looking at this article, Unlock Deeper Connections Through the Art of Listening, and it really resonated with me. It really did.
It's a good one.
It's something we all kind of think we do, but then when you really start thinking about it, are we really listening,
Yeah, and the thing is, the article makes this point about how in this world of distractions, everybody's phone is always buzzing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right. And we're constantly bombarded with information. Actually being able to just be present with someone and listen to what they're saying it's almost like a superpower now,
Yeah, and the article even calls it an art, the art of listening.
It is. It's a skill, like anything else you have to practice. And
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things the article points out is this idea of surface listening versus really deeply listening.
Right.
Sometimes you're just hearing words, but you're not really taking it in. You're not connecting with the person who's speaking.
It's like the difference between hearing noise and actually appreciating a piece of music.
Exactly. And the article, it quotes Stephen Covey, which I thought this was so brilliant. He said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply.
Oh, that's so true.
Right. We're already thinking about, okay, what am I going to say next?
Oh, I do that. I totally do that.
Instead of actually absorbing what the other person is saying. And I think, when you think about it, think about a time when you felt like someone was really listening to you.
Oh, yeah.
Without judgment, without interruption. How did that make you feel?
Oh, seen, heard, what I had to say actually mattered.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that what we all crave? To feel like we matter, like our experiences are valid?
And the article even connects this, mindful listening to empathy.
Right. Yeah. And they have this quote from Oscar Wilde who said, "It is very hard to listen without prejudice."
Right.
We all come into every conversation with our own baggage, our own biases.
And the article was talking about, mindful listening as being fully present, not just to the words, but to the emotions behind the words.
Yes.
And even quotes Brene Brown, who says, connection is why we're here. It gives purpose and meaning to our lives.
And if we can't connect through listening, then what are we really doing?
Right.
What's the point of interacting with other people if we're not actually engaging with them on that level?
Right. It's not just about the words. It's about picking up on the nuances, the tone of voice, even the body language, all of that.
All of that. Because, communication, it's so much more than just the words we say.
Right. It's you become this detective, you're trying to uncover the deeper meaning behind what's being said.
Absolutely. And that's where I think things get really interesting, because the article talks about this idea of letting go of the need to respond immediately.
Oh.
It's you're having a conversation and your brain is just, it's going a mile a minute.
Mine does that all the time. It's I know.
Right. And you're trying to formulate your response, or you're already judging what the other person is saying or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no, just hit the pause button on all that. Just be present with what you're hearing.
That's hard.
It is hard. It's definitely a practice. But what the article is saying is that constant need to respond, it can actually shut down the conversation.
I've been in conversations where I've felt shut down, and now I'm wondering, was it me? Was I not really listening?
It's possible.
Yeah.
And, when we're not fully present, we miss those crucial details, those emotional cues. And that's what ultimately leads to misunderstanding.
And disconnection.
Yeah. You're building walls between yourself and the other person,
Yeah.
every interruption or judgment. And, there's actual science behind this. They've done studies that show that when we feel truly listened to, our brains release oxytocin, which is that bonding hormone.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It literally creates a sense of connection and trust, on a neurological level.
So mindful listening isn't just a nice thing to do. It actually has a physiological impact on our brains and our relationships.
It does. And I love how Carl Rogers, the psychologist, he said it so perfectly. He said, when someone really hears you without passing judgment on you, without trying to take responsibility for you, without trying to mold you, it feels damn good.
Yes. So how do we actually become better at this whole mindful listening thing? The article offers some pretty practical tips, right?
It does, yeah. And I think one of the most important ones is silencing that inner dialogue we were just talking about. It's about focusing on the speaker's words, not on your own running commentary.
Yeah.
That little voice in your head that's oh, I agree with this, or I disagree with this, or what are we going to have for dinner tonight?
I have that voice, yes.
We all do. It's about quieting that voice and just really being present with what the other person is saying.
But that's easier said than done, right?
It is. It is. It takes practice. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. The article also talks about the importance of eye contact. Just that simple act of looking someone in the eye when they're talking to you can make them feel so much more seen and heard.
I mean, think about how it feels when you're talking to someone and they're not looking at you.
Right.
Like, are you even listening to me? It's like, I'm not even in the room.
Exactly. Eye contact is a simple, but it's a powerful way to convey that you're present, that you care about what the other person is saying. And when we're talking about nonverbal cues, the article also mentions body language. Are you leaning in? Are you nodding your head? Or are you like closed off and distracted?
So it's like our bodies are communicating even when we're not saying a word.
Right. So being mindful of our own body language, that's just as important as paying attention to the speakers.
Oh, gosh. There's so much more to mindful listening than I initially thought.
There is.
Yeah.
And we're just scratching the surface. The article goes on to suggest asking open-ended questions. So instead of asking questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, you ask questions that encourage the speaker to elaborate, to share more.
Right. Like instead of leading the conversation, you're creating space for the speaker to really express themselves.
Exactly. And of course, one of the biggest obstacles to mindful listening is the dreaded interruption.
Ugh, yes.
We've all been there, right? Like you're so eager to jump in with your own thoughts, but you haven't even let the other person finish their sentence.
I do it all the time, I know.
But the article reminds us that resisting that urge to interrupt, that is key. It shows respect for the speaker. It allows them to fully articulate their thoughts without feeling rushed or dismissed.
And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is just reflect back what you've heard. Like, not necessarily paraphrasing word for word, but just summarizing, acknowledging the speaker's feelings. It's like saying, I hear you, I understand what you're saying, without actually interrupting the flow of their thoughts. It's a way of validating their experience and letting them know that you're truly listening.
And I think that's a really great point to transition into the next part of our conversation.
Oh, this is getting good.
Because the article goes into some, even more practical tips and techniques for becoming a master of mindful listening.
Oh, I can't wait.
So, we were talking about silencing that inner voice and, avoiding interruptions. But the article also talks about being present, like physically present.
Oh, you mean like actually like putting away your phone, closing your laptop, turning to face the person you're talking to?
Exactly, like minimizing those distractions.
Yeah.
And showing the speaker that you are giving them your undivided attention. I mean, think about it. How would you feel if you were talking to someone and they were constantly like checking their phone?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Like my words didn't matter. Like
I wasn't important enough.
It's like you're saying you're not as important as whatever's happening on my phone. And that can be so damaging.
The article also mentioned something that I thought was really interesting, like embracing pauses. In our world, we're so used to filling every silence with words. But the article suggests that those moments of quiet can actually be really valuable.
Oh, they can be. They can be those pauses they give both the speaker and the listener time to process what's been said. It's a chance to reflect, to kind of digest the information and to formulate a more thoughtful response.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button on the conversation.
Yeah.
Everyone gets a chance to breathe and gather their thoughts.
Exactly. And sometimes the most profound insights, they come from those moments of silence. It's when we stop talking and we really start listening that we can truly connect on a deeper level. This is making me realize how much I've been missing out on by rushing through conversations. It's like I've been so focused on getting my point across that I haven't taken the time to actually listen to what the other person has to say.
Yeah, it's a common trap. And the article even suggests that we should try to view mindful listening as a form of meditation. Like it's about training your mind to be present in the moment, to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, and to just be with the other person without trying to fix them or change them.
That's such an interesting perspective. I never thought of it as a form of meditation, but it makes sense. It's about cultivating a sense of awareness and presence, both within ourselves and in our interactions with others.
Exactly. And remember, we talked about empathy earlier. Well, the article reminds us that practicing empathy is a crucial part of mindful listening. It's about putting yourself in the other person's shoes and trying to see the world from their perspective and feel what they're feeling.
Like stepping outside of your own little bubble and entering their world,
And that can be so powerful because it allows us to connect on a heart-to-heart level.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing their humanity, their struggles, their joys, and seeing them as a fellow traveler on this journey of life.
I've always thought of myself as a pretty empathetic person, but now I'm realizing that there's always room for improvement. Like, mindful listening, it seems, is the key to unlocking that deeper level of empathy.
It is, and the article makes a great point about how mindful listening can not only benefit our relationships, but also enhance our own personal growth.
Oh,
Well, when we truly listen to others, we open ourselves up to new perspectives and ways of thinking. We might hear a story or an anecdote that challenges our assumptions or inspires us to see things in a different light.
yeah, it's like we're constantly expanding our understanding of the world and ourselves through the act of listening.
Exactly. And the article even suggests that mindful listening can help us become more self-aware. Like when we pay attention to how we're listening, we start to notice our own patterns of thought, our
Yeah.
biases, our triggers.
It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves and seeing how we react to different people and situations.
Precisely. And that self-awareness can be so valuable because it allows us to make more conscious choices in our lives. We can start to identify the things that are holding us back, the negative thought patterns that are keeping us stuck, and we can begin to work on changing them.
So mindful listening isn't just about improving our relationships with others, it's about improving our relationship with ourselves as well.
It is. And the article highlights another important benefit of mindful listening: reducing misunderstandings and conflicts.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be the case. When we're not truly listening, it's so easy to misinterpret what's being said or to jump to conclusions.
Exactly. But when we take the time to really understand another person's perspective, we're less likely to get defensive or to react impulsively. Instead, we can approach the situation with more patience, compassion, and understanding.
It's like you're diffusing a potentially volatile situation before it even has a chance to escalate.
And that's a skill that's invaluable in all aspects of life, whether we're dealing with family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers.
So mindful listening isn't just some fluffy, feel-good concept, It's a practical tool that can help us navigate the complexities of human interaction with more grace and ease.
It is. And the article even goes as far as to say that mindful listening is essential for creating a more peaceful and understanding world.
Now, that's a bold statement, but I can see how it's true. If we all made a conscious effort to listen more deeply to each other, to really try to understand where the other person is coming from, wouldn't that lead to more empathy, more compassion, and ultimately more peace?
It would. And think about all the conflicts in the world that stem from a lack of understanding, from people talking past each other instead of truly listening.
Wars, political divisions, even arguments within families and communities. So many of these conflicts could be avoided or at least mitigated if people were more willing to listen to each other with open hearts and minds.
It's a powerful reminder that mindful listening is more than just a personal skill. It's a social responsibility. It's about recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being and creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
I love how the article connects this idea of mindful listening to the wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "It is one of the blessings of old friends that you can afford to be stupid with them."
That's a great quote, and it really speaks to the power of deep connection. When we feel truly listened to and understood, we feel safe to be ourselves, even our most goofy or vulnerable selves. We don't have to pretend or put on a facade. We can just be.
And that sense of safety and acceptance is the foundation of any strong relationship. It's what allows us to be open, honest, and authentic with each other. And that's where the real magic happens.
Exactly. And the article emphasizes that mindful listening is often the key to building those kinds of deep, trusting relationships. It's about creating a space where people feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment or rejection.
And that vulnerability is what allows for true connection and intimacy. It's what allows us to see each other's souls and to experience the full richness of human experience together.
The article also highlights those personal benefits of mindful listening, which we touched on earlier.
Right, like how it can enhance our self-awareness and understanding.
Exactly. When we listen mindfully, we become more attuned to our own thoughts, emotions, and reactions. We start to notice patterns in our thinking and behavior, which can help us make more conscious choices in our lives.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly learning and growing through the act of listening, both to ourselves and to others.
And mindful listening can even help us become more effective communicators ourselves.
Because when we truly understand how to listen, we become better at expressing ourselves in a way that is clear, concise, and compassionate.
Exactly. We learn to choose our words, more carefully, to pay attention to our tone of voice, and to consider the impact our words might have on the other person.
So mindful listening is a win-win situation. It benefits both the listener and the speaker, and it has the potential to create ripple effects of positivity that extend far beyond the immediate conversation.
It's a powerful practice, and the article reminds us that it's an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's something we have to continually work on, but the rewards are well worth the effort.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into mindful listening, let's take a moment to reflect on our own listening habits. What are some areas where we could improve? What steps can we take to become more present and attentive in our conversations?
Remember, mindful listening is a gift we can give to ourselves and to others. It's a gift that keeps on giving, deepening our connections and enriching our lives in countless ways.
It's amazing how this deep dive is making me realize that mindful listening is about so much more than just better conversations, you know?
It really is. There's so much more to it than meets the eye.
Right.
And, the article doesn't explicitly say this, but I'm wondering if mindful listening could even be a key to unlocking creativity.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. How so?
Well, if you think about it, so many creative breakthroughs happen when you connect seemingly unrelated ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're truly listening to others, you're opening yourself up to new perspectives and ways of thinking that you might never have considered on your own.
It's like you're expanding your mental library with each conversation, gathering inspiration from the most unexpected sources.
Exactly. You might hear a story that sparks an idea for a new project, or a problem that someone's facing might inspire a solution you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
So mindful listening could be like a secret weapon for anyone who wants to be more creative.
I think so. It's like you're constantly gathering data and insights from the world around you, but you can only fully access that information if you're truly paying attention.
So it's not just about what you hear, it's about how you hear it.
Exactly. It's about being present, engaged, and open to the possibilities that each conversation holds.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to truly listen.
Me too. And the best part is it's a skill you can continue to develop and refine over time.
So what's one key takeaway that you'd want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think the most important thing is to remember that mindful listening is a gift.
Oh, yeah.
It's a gift you give to yourself, and it's a gift you give to others.
It's a gift that keeps on giving, deepening our connections and enriching our lives in countless ways.
And who knows, it might even spark your next creative breakthrough.
That's it for our deep dive into the art of mindful listening. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
And remember, the power to connect more deeply is within each of us.
All we have to do is listen, love,